All right, so we'll get started for this portion where we get to interview you. So Vasyl, could you tell us about yourself, like your name, the name of your business?
Yeah, my name is Vasyl Khokhla, and the business name is like I work in two segments. One is consulting and CFO outsourcing segment. That business is called Khokhla CPA PLC, and another segment is tax resolution, solving tax challenges for the individuals and companies if they owe the debt to the IRS or the state or the municipal government. So that's the two-vector uh, business model.
Okay, I just realized I should have backed up a little bit and asked you first about yourself. So could you tell us like where you're from and where you live now?
Yeah, I'm originally from Ukraine, from Western Ukraine, the Carpathian Mountains, foothills, and half of my life I lived in Ukraine, and half of my life I lived in the United States. I came here first as an exchange student to North Carolina, and then I went to university in Charlotte area, and lived for my wife and I lived for a while in North Carolina and South Carolina. And then we came in New York in amidst pandemic in July 2020. Because my wife finished her law education from Duke Law, and then she got licensed in New York. So both of us wanted to make a move to New York, and we made it during COVID pandemic in July 2020.
Wow, I mean,
Yeah.
it was a very different time then from where we are now. Could you tell us a little bit about what things were like in July 2020?
It was still very dreary in the streets. Of course, it wasn't the height, because the height was in March and April when we heard news reports about thousands of bodies, some of them like being thousands of bodies, and they were like all stacked up, and the sanitation department was like very overwhelmed. So July wasn't quite like that, but it was very dreary. I remember riding my bike in the city in Times Square, and in Times Square you see millions of people usually, but it was so sparsely filled with people, a person here, a person there. So New York City didn't look like its normal self.
Right.
So it took a while until the following year to really for the things to start bouncing back.
Yeah, I remember that exactly. And I think that's why I'm really curious that you chose to move to New York City. Like, what were some of the things that maybe you were afraid of and some of the hopes you had for New York City?
Well, I believe that it's helpful to look at things outside the box and not to follow the general trend, because the idea is a lot of people were moving out of New York. But what does it mean that if people are moving out of New York, then the rent plummets, and it actually becomes, from strategic standpoint, it becomes a very good time to move in. So if you consider, if you challenge yourself to think counter-conventionally and counterintuitively, you can really reap great rewards. And in business in general, risk requires reward. And then you have original thinking. The more original thinking you have, you can be ahead of the competition. So that kind of thinking help us weigh the risk. Yes, it's COVID, but we could tell that eventually it will pass. But we judged that it was good time to move into New York City.
Got it. So you've mentioned what your business does earlier. Could you talk a little more about who your customers are?
Yeah, so have a variety of different clients. Some, like I still have a relationship with the family conglomerate in South Carolina. They are in health services, healthcare services. It's called the nurses pay visits to people's homes. It's called house calls model, and then they also have real estate restaurants. So I maintain some relationship with them, and then restaurants in New York City. I work with the epilepsy practice in New Jersey, with some commercial real estate, and with some individuals in need for tax resolution.
Got it. So it sounds like you work with many smaller businesses around New York City.
Yeah, like small businesses, like the businesses that just started out, and I have a long-standing client, like mid-market client that has been around, like a restaurant that has been around since 1980s.
Yeah, that's impressive. And there are so many restaurants that come and go in New York City. To be around for 3 decades or more, I guess, it's really an accomplishment. Can you tell us a little bit about what kind of problems you help solve for these businesses?
Yeah, so on the vector of CFO outsourcing, it's helping with the KPIs, key performance indicators. So I review financial statements, analyze them to come up with the insights to the business owner. Say, okay, at the end of the month, this is the performance of the business entity. This is how we can adjust it for the following month. So that come the end of the year, we're in a good shape financially and also prepared, well positioned for the tax strategy. And besides that, it's financing, like for helping apply for different loans with the banks and SBA programs, and advising businesses on business model and strategy, especially factoring in accounting and tax considerations, and M&A support from the accounting and tax angles.
Got it.
So that's the consulting segment of it. From the tax resolution segment of that, it's helping people and companies who have outstanding liability to the tax liability to the IRS, municipal or state tax authorities. So it comes down to looking at the assets and disposable income of the client that determines reasonable collection potential. Once we determine reasonable collection potential, or RCP, that gives us the basis to see if the client may be a good candidate for the offer of compromise with the IRS. If it is determined that he is, then we can negotiate with the IRS and settle the overall liability for much less, because the IRS is not a charity agency to just give people cuts, but if they see that realistically the client cannot pay that amount, they are willing to settle as long as they see evidence for the low assets and income for the clients. So helping clients make a compelling case, if they qualify asset-wise and income-wise, to make a compelling case and negotiate settlement with the IRS or state or municipal authority. So that's helping individuals and also companies with the income tax liability, sales tax liability, and payroll tax liability settlements and negotiations and compromises.
I mean, that must be such a relief for your customers.
Yeah, it's a kind of like, I like to give an example of a green card because I came as a foreigner to this country. So overcoming a green card obstacle was huge. So like, imagine a lawyer helps you get your green card by representing you. You'll remember that lawyer for life because it was a huge milestone for your life. So likewise, in this situation, imagine a wife kicked out the husband to sleep on the couch because he didn't solve the tax debt, or he's trying to pay for his son's field trip, or somebody wants to pay for his daughter's wedding, but they can't because the IRS is taking them by the throat. The assets could be arrested, and it's not that they procrastinated or they were in a bad situation emotionally for whatever reason, and the problems were piling up, penalties, interests, and these people just feel stuck. So if you help them solve the case and clean the slate for them with the IRS, then they can resume their life. They can do what they want to do with their life. They would remember you for life. So I like the high impact of this service to clients.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense. And, it sounds like, so you're so passionate about helping them and helping these real problems for them. Your clients are really happy to have you and have your support.
Yeah, like some professional service people like to brag. I work with high net worth individuals, and I say I work with low net worth individuals, because you see, like, if you talk about good candidates for the offers in compromise, if somebody has high assets, the IRS is not going to settle, because they say this person has high assets, he has ability to sell those assets and extinguish the tax debt. But if we're talking about the low net worth individuals and low assets, and the client cannot truly pay for the tax liability, that's the cases that the IRS may be willing to settle.